Data has become one of the most important resources we consume as people. It's part of our daily lives, and many users never know it's even there. What we know about data is limited to our personal experiences with it, and the impact that data has grows exponentially every day. And I've had a lifelong journey learning about data and its application, and there's still much more to learn. I'm Steve Kenniston. This is Data Unknown. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Data Unknown podcast. My name is Steve Kenniston. I am joined here with my colleague, Pete Gerr. How you doing, Pete?
Hey, Steve. Good. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
We are here this week to introduce Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So it's a month where the whole month is taken up with cybersecurity awareness topics. And Pete and I both work for Dell Technologies and pretty excited to share what's coming down the pipe from Dell Technologies. We hope to highlight some really important themes, and throughout this week, you're going to see a number of different themes each week that we will be talking about. And each week we're going to open up each week with a simple podcast just to talk a little bit about what you're going to hear about, what kinds of things you're going to see, what kinds of things you should expect to hear, and highlight some particular topics. And this first particular week really has to do with kind of the big lead-in that Dell had established over the course of this year as their kind of lead topic around cybersecurity, which is to fortify your environment with modern security, as well as a little bit around zero trust. So let's jump in. So as we start thinking about security, Pete, some of the biggest challenges that folks are starting to see and actually really start to understand is really this whole evolution of the infrastructure, right? I mean, we've seen this.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Steve, and good to be with you again. And should we let folks know that if they want to learn more, they can go to dell.com/cybersecurity month for more information about that and Dell solutions and services.
That's great information. And we'll put that in the show notes so that you can click right on it. But good information.
Thanks, Steve. So cybersecurity, like the rest of IT, has evolved so rapidly over the last 10 to 15 years. It almost feels like security is just trying to catch up with the move from on-premises into a multi-cloud environment or out to the edge. It's not like the years ago, even 10 years ago, where we had more centralized, more monolithic data centers, and it was easier to kind of control people's use of and access to data and applications or the network. It's much different today, right? As you know, we live in a hyper distributed world, and that makes cybersecurity holistically challenging, Steve.
Yeah, and I think we've also seen kind of this lack of this true perimeter, where it used to be the building that you were in or the couple of buildings that your organization was in. Now it's edge with all the folks working from home. It's that same core, and now you also have to deal with the cloud and different types of applications in the cloud. Apps you're building, applications that are run by particular vendors to support your business, right? So security needs to be consistent for what you used to have in that perimeter across all of this, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've seen, security built into processes like development, right? DevSecOps, building security right into the development process rather than as a bolt-on afterthought. But that same kind of discipline really hasn't necessarily been brought out to the larger enterprise or to larger organizations. And the attack surfaces are so varied and wide today. And so that really is forcing sort of customers to look at a different way of doing cybersecurity today.
And what I think is really interesting is we talk about security, the word security, quite a bit. And security is very important. And my lens, and it's a little different for everybody, right? My lens is security is really all about trying to keep the bad actors out. There's also this term resilience, which is once they get in, and we know they're going to, they bring down your infrastructure, how quickly can you recover, which is how resilient is your business? Some of the same things that we're seeing, Pete, when you talk DevSecOps, right? Very concerned about people getting in. How concerned are they about rebuilding when something happens?
Yeah, it's interesting, Steve. You and I, we were just talking a little bit earlier about the idea of data being the resource, the grand currency of today's economy, regardless of what business you're in. And that's really what the bad actors are after. And so it's not enough to just try to prevent them getting in, because that doesn't work. Like you said, you've got to accept that there will be a breach, plan for it, have an extra copy of your data or something isolated or offsite or both, and then have a recovery plan and test it. It's almost the same practices we've been talking about, for since DR, right?
And we'll put more links in the show notes, but Gartner had done a great paper around, the title was, "You Will Be Hacked, So Embrace the Breach." And it really did talk about that dichotomy of spend on security, keeping the bad folks out, and how there hasn't really been enough to date about the resiliency or making sure you can rebuild after it happens. And they cited a lot of examples from the Colonial Pipeline hack and a number of other hacks where it took folks a while to recover. And it's not just about the technology that is in place to help you recover, but I find folks that don't practice and they don't have a good full run book or understanding of how to do the recovery, when an attack happens, panic sets in. And when panic sets in, human error. And if you don't, like the military, they practice to make sure when the real thing happens, they can recover or they can do their job. Same kind of thing, same kind of principles really apply when it comes to recovering your business, right?
Yeah, really well said, Steve. It is that really becomes part of the best practices, and we're seeing, our customers with such a much larger landscape to protect. So their core operations, which might be on-prem, their cloud or multi-cloud for their production applications, maybe some protection, but it's spread everywhere. You've got knowledge workers, right, everywhere. So I think that you bring up that important point of accepting that there will be certain degree of attacks, of penetration, and being able to recover and respond. The other thing this has done, which we've talked a lot about, maybe you can go into a little bit more, that's getting a lot of notoriety as a way to organize a security strategy, is the zero trust architecture. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe what that means to Dell?
No, I'm really glad you brought that up, Pete, because we talk a lot about security. We brought up resilience, but now the whole commentary is really around zero trust. And I think it was kind of led by the Biden administration putting forth some things throughout the public sector and private sector to be able to say, you need to build this security infrastructure that is protected for your environment. And zero trust is really all about, trust no one, right? To make sure that when they come into your environment, whether it be an application, data, or a system, that they have the proper credentials to be able to access that stuff. And it's not to say that they don't, but you just want to make sure that when people log in or want to get access to some of that they have the proper credentials, so they're not doing anything maliciously within your environment.
So, Steve, that was a great summary of zero trust, which, as you said, we continue to see as an emerging strategy. A lot of interest among our customers and partners around that, and we'll certainly play a role in that, in being able to enable a zero trust architecture and work with the ecosystem of partners we have. So earlier this year, Dell unveiled our security strategy, as you pointed out at the beginning, and we call that Fortify with Modern Security. Can you just provide a little bit of overview of what that means, and that we'll be hearing about in the coming weeks?
Yeah, Pete, I think that's really interesting. It's kind of funny, having been back to Dell, once at EMC, now back at Dell for about 6 months. When I first heard about the strategy, the Fortify with Modern Security strategy, I was kind of scratching my head about what does that mean? And I think I was reading too much into it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you think modern security, you're thinking about modern security practices and tactics that you need to consider when building out what you want to do for security, zero trust, resilience within your environment. And, a lot of that stems from some really cool capabilities that I've come to learn that Dell does really well. And you actually mentioned one of them, which is that secure development lifecycle. As you're a developer building applications, it's not build it, and then at the very end test it and make sure, and then make sure it's secure after it's tested. It's build, test, secure, build, test, secure, right? And you go through that to make sure you can get better rapid time to development. We do that throughout our entire product portfolio, right? To make sure as we're building new features, we're not just hearing from the field, hey, we need this feature, and we just go build it. It's no, how does this actually fit into what we're trying to do? And then how does it tangentially fit, because Dell sells a lot of products, across our product portfolio? The other capability, Pete, that we've been talking a lot about, right, is this secure supply chain, right? Which to me, I hadn't heard a lot about it before I got here, but now every place you turn, right, there's someone talking about a secure supply chain.
Yeah, it's interesting to have seen this, how supply chain has become another threat vector, another target for cyber criminals, and almost a competitive advantage for organizations that view that as such, right, as the importance of that in this interconnected world we're living in. So one other topic that we're going to be introducing and talking a lot about in the coming weeks, Steve, that you and I personally worked on, is Dell Trusted Infrastructure. And Dell Trusted Infrastructure isn't a new product, but it's really an identity for us to talk about our storage, our servers and networking solutions, our hyper-converged and data protection solutions and services in the context of a security discussion. So would you like to just maybe summarize what Dell Trusted Infrastructure is, or are we going to talk a little bit more about it later?
Well, I think we are going to talk more about it later, but it is that holistic kind of ladder down from when you say modern security, what does that mean? And then if you are, depending on what type of consumer you are you looking for consumer-based products? Are you looking for enterprise-based products? The group you and I cover, the enterprise, right, and the infrastructure group, thinking around storage, servers, networking, hyperconverged systems, data protection. How does the Dell Trusted Infrastructure fit into those? And we talk about a really modern, so that's kind of modern security, resilient, right? We want to make sure it can withstand anything that's going to happen, and intelligence, right? And we've got a lot of intelligent AI capabilities built into some of our products that help you do things like AI anomaly detection through AI and that sort of thing, to help make sure that your business is being looked after even while you sleep, which is really important.
And that goes from the products and the components that we source all the way through their supply chain and development cycle, as you said, to delivery and even support after the fact. So it's a big story, and we're going to be unpacking that together over the next couple of weeks, Steve, and excited to be here with you.
Yeah. Well, Pete, this has been a great conversation. I really look forward, and I hope everyone else does too, to looking through all of our social media channels, all of Dell's social media channels, to find more content and assets about what is the Fortify with modern security, what does it mean to be a part of Dell Trusted Infrastructure, a little bit more on Zero Trust, as well as right down to some of the specific product capabilities that we can deliver to you to be able to help you build that secure infrastructure. And again, for more information, and again, we will put it in the show notes, right? Dell.com/cybersecurity month. And with that, Pete, thank you very much for joining me today.
Great way to kick off the month, Steve. Thanks.
Have a good day.